And Jesus entered the synagogue again, and a man was there who had a withered hand. So they watched him closely, whether he would heal him on the Sabbath, so that they might accuse him. And he said to the man with the withered hand, "Step forward." Then he said to them, "Is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill?" But they kept silent. And when he had looked around at them with anger, being grieved by the hardness of their hearts, he said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." And he stretched it out, and his hand was restored as whole as the other. Then the Pharisees went out and immediately plotted with the Herodians against him, how they might destroy him. But Jesus withdrew with his disciples to the sea, and a great multitude from Galilee followed him, and from Judea and Jerusalem and Idumea and beyond the Jordan, and those from Tyre and Sidon, a great multitude, when they heard how many things he was doing, came to him. So he told his disciples that a small boat should be kept ready for him, because of the multitude, lest they should crush him. For he healed many, so that as many as had afflictions pressed about him to touch him. And the unclean spirits, whenever they saw him, fell down before him and cried out, saying, "You are the Son of God." But he sternly warned them that they should not make him known. My name's Arthur, and I thank you for joining me as we share together from Mark's Gospel, chapter 3. We've read verses 1 to 12. As Mark introduces us to Jesus, he highlights the controversies that centred around Jesus, and these are represented by the pithy sayings that he made in answer to his critics. This leads us to appreciate a huge difference between religion, which was practiced by the Pharisees and the Sadducees and various other groups, and is focused on rules and rituals, and godliness and faith in God, as practiced by Jesus. They both ostensibly honoured God, but one had a huge response by the people. The other, the people were not interested in at all. The remarkable things that Mark has then emphasised is, first of all, Jesus claims to be the Son of Man, which is a messianic title from Daniel chapter 7. He is the one who is anointed to be ruler of the whole earth, but in the first instance is King of Israel. This man has authority on earth to forgive sins, and that distinguishes him from every other teacher. Every other teacher can set the standard, tell us what we should do, but has no remedy when we fail. The wages of sin is death in all religions, but it is only Jesus Christ who has the opportunity of forgiveness. But Jesus not only forgives sins, he also empowers for service. And he came into the world to save sinners. So the first controversy was that Jesus went out to meet the tax collectors and sinners. He ate with people who were not religious, who had no time for God, but they had time for Jesus. And Jesus' explanation was, "I did not come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance." And he didn't follow the religious customs of the Pharisees in terms of their fasts, but more so in terms of the rules, the arbitrary rules that they had placed on the Sabbath, so that there were a whole host of things that they would not do, and Jews today still do not do, on the Sabbath. And Jesus says the Son of Man is also Lord of the Sabbath, and the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. In other words, the whole idea of the Sabbath is to have a day of rest, and to arbitrarily define work as the issue is misapplying the passage. So this made him a little bit unpopular with the authorities, who could not accept he could forgive sins and would not accept his redefining what could be done on a Sabbath. And so on a Sabbath he comes into the synagogue, where he did most of his teaching, unless he was out in the countryside where crowds came to him. And again there was a setup. There was a man there with a withered hand, and everyone was watching to see if Jesus would heal him. For to heal was viewed as work, even though he was not being paid for it. And so he would break the Sabbath, and they would have a basis for accusing him. But he says, is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill? And they refused to answer. What is more important, the Sabbath rule or the principle of life? And Jesus is plainly saying the principle of life, to save life, is always more important than everything else. And when you heal a person, you are saving life. It's simply a matter of degree. And when they refused to answer, he was very grieved. He was angry with them, angry that they would, in the name of God, be so hard, for God is a God of love. He instructs the man to stretch out his hand. So he doesn't do anything that is visible. He doesn't manipulate. He doesn't apply any ointment or anything. He just says, stretch out your hand. And immediately the hand is restored. And immediately the Pharisees went out and plotted with the Herodians against him, how they might destroy him. The Pharisees, the extreme right. The Herodians supported the rule of Herod, and implicitly the Romans as well, so they were on the left. But they all came together to destroy Jesus. Well, that's the attitude of the Pharisees. But what's the attitude of the people? When there's opposition, Jesus just walks away from it. And so he took his disciples away from the synagogue and went out by the sea. And the crowds followed him. Crowds not just from that vicinity, but crowds from everywhere, from Judea and Jerusalem, Idumea, that's Edom, which is further south, along the Jordan, and way up north, Tyre and Sidon. A great multitude. When they heard the stories of Jesus and what he was doing, they came to him. And there was so much of a crowd that Jesus had his disciples organise a boat so that he could get in the boat and be able to address them from the boat and not be crushed by the crowd. And what is he doing? He is meeting their needs. He is healing many with whatever afflictions they had. They came to touch him. And of course, as Mark has emphasised, many unclean spirits were driven out by him. Those afflicted by demons were characterised by having spiritual insight as to who Jesus was, the Son of God. This was not something Jesus was proclaiming at this point, but being spirits, demons recognised the Spirit of God in the man Jesus. And it's true today. Evil spirits in people today will recognise the Spirit of God in a believer. But Jesus would not allow them to speak and would not allow them to make him known. Jesus was not looking for accreditation from the demons. As Mark has introduced Jesus to us, we see the great controversy. This man can forgive sins. This man goes out of his way to seek those who are not religious. And he doesn't just stand on the footpath and yell at them, but he comes beside them to heal them and to help them, to talk with them, to eat with them. And those who are religious and proud of their own religion and other strong leaders took opposition to him because of his humility, because of his lowliness, plotting how they might destroy him, for they saw him as a threat, though he was not doing anything politically to threaten them. They recognised he was a threat because he was not honouring them, but rather he was implicitly criticising them by healing on the Sabbath, and by healing on any day, and by seeking the lost. But the multitude recognised him as one they should come to, one who would meet their needs, and who were willing to humble themselves to seek help. He said to them, "Is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill?" And they kept silent.